Well, I want to welcome everyone here this morning. I'm so glad you were able to join us for our convening, and we are so excited that you chose to be with us at early in the morning. Early in the morning. So, welcome to our Antelope Valley Stakeholders convening for Best Start. Yeah. Go ahead and say your good mornings. Um, It's time for a change. We're at the end of the year already. Can you believe it? We are already in December, coming to the conclusion of our 2021 year. I want to encourage you all to please check your link. We just put in the chat box the link to sign in. So I'm going to ask you to please sign in. We want to make sure we note that you were here. Stephanie has put that link in our chat box, so go ahead and do that right now. Thank you so very much. Awesome Blossom.
And also, just to if we have any Spanish speakers in our on our webinar today, if you could please check your little globe and put Spanish, because we do have Carmen here translating for us. So
yes. So go ahead and do that now. Yeah, go. Thank you. Good morning. Okay, this is our agenda for today, and it's going to go so smoothly, you all, because again, we're at the end of the year, and we're going to have a wonderful meeting today. So we're going to do some things have changed slightly. Our Best Start First 5 LA systems change is going to be talked about. Redistricting, we were going to address that today, but one of our speakers had an emergency, so she won't be able to join us. It was a last minute emergency, but that's okay because things happen. We're going to go over our Policy Leadership Academy, and Tracy Lamonica is going to talk some about that, and we're super excited about what that's going to produce. We also have our data presentation with Luce Wilkinson and Christine. They're going to come and share some data presentation information with us, as well as power mapping, because you all, the last time we came together, people expressed a desire to know more about the power mapping. So we're going to do that today. And then we're going to have our breakout rooms and talk about our next steps, some things that we can do next, because we're on the move. We're moving forward.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sylvia Scott, and I'm the Director of Place-Based Strategies in the Antelope Valley, overseeing the Best Start program. And before we get started, I just wanted to give you just a little bit of history in terms of how Best Start came about. Our funder is First 5 LA, and we know that First 5 LA has a lot of strategies and programs that they fund throughout LA County, and Best Start is one of them as well. And First 5 believes that working with parents and residents and community is critical, right? And that no one is more of an expert when it comes to challenges that our kids and families face but our community members. So out of that thought is really how Best Start was born, and this initiative really is about systems change and how we what the pathway is and what does it involve, who does it involve. So I'd like to start off by first giving just a kind of a North Star of what First 5 LA has set up for all of their Best Start regions throughout LA County. And really the North Star is that by 2028 all children in LA County will enter kindergarten ready to succeed in school and life. So what do we expect from the systems to be able to accomplish this? We want to make sure that all systems that affect our community are accessible to everyone in the community, that they offer quality services and programs, that they are aligned with the needs and expectations of the community. And lastly, that they are sustainable, that they can continue to be available to the community as we move along. And one of the things is really, how do we go about changing systems? And there's several things that we can do to do that. One of them is really becoming involved in policy change. at a local level, at a state level, and at federal levels. And really just being involved and knowing what is coming down in terms of policy that could be affecting our community, affecting the systems, whether it be education, health system, and really being aware of that really is one step to get to make some of that systems change. We also want to make sure that we are actively and intentionally practicing change within our community. Are we practicing change individually? Are we doing it within our family, within our community, our jobs, or the services that we provide? Really being conscious and intentional about that. And then we want to be able to make sure that we identify and that we acknowledge that and encourage our community to use the tools that are already in place, or find new or identify new tools to really get our community to advocate for itself. So some of the outcomes that we also want to see within our community are for children to be safe from abuse, from neglect, and from other kinds of trauma. We want our children to have high quality early care and educational experiences. This having those kind of outcomes really leads to children being able to succeed and being more productive later on throughout school and in the community. We want to identify developmental needs really early on. And once we identify those needs, we want to make sure that the supports and the services are really accessible to those families early on. The earlier we can identify and link those families to these resources, the better equipped the families will be to handle whether it's the educational system, the health system. And so we really want to prepare our community to do that. So we want to really talk about emphasizing collaboration, integrity, learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we can use all of those values to really strengthen our public and community systems. We want to expand the influence and the impact with the utilization of local data. And in order to accomplish all of this, we really keep having to have these conversations of who do we bring to the table, who's missing from the table to have these conversations. We want to make sure we have our network grows, and who should be included in our network is parents, nonprofit organizations, businesses, healthcare organizations, government officials, educational officials. We want to bring the faith-based organizations to the table as well. We want to bring residents, we want to bring other foundations and other community-based organizations that all have an impact and an influence within our community. And to be able to do that, we want to continually encourage and invite everybody to our Best Start meetings. We have our Best Start Community Change Agenda meeting, and then we also have a partnership meeting. And part of our meetings really are about our change agenda is really talking about what are the changes we want to see, what are we focusing on, what are some policy issues that may be coming up. In our partnership meeting, we really try to bring partners, we try to bring speakers, we try to bring resources that really tie into our focus areas, which are that of preventing child abuse within the Antelope Valley, but also resource mobilization and a focus in early education. So I will have Stephanie bring us in, or in our chat room, share the link to our meeting. We have one meeting for the month of December. It will be on December 16th. And really what this meeting is really about celebrating and acknowledging the work that has been done throughout the year with Best Start and with the community, and really just about having a moment of some fun. We're going to have some games, we're going to have some giveaways, really just to get us ready to get into the holidays. We know the holidays are difficult for a lot of people. For some people, they're just very stressful and filled with a lot of stuff happening both at work and in their personal life. So really encourage you to just come and have a little bit of fun with us for that meeting. But even ongoing, really being part of this team, that we want to make some systems change. We want to address and really impact the needs that our community in the Antelope Valley has. So again, thank you all for coming and joining us today. And like Darrell said, unfortunately our partner from the city of Palmdale was going to come and talk today about the redistricting that's happening in the city of Palmdale, and unfortunately she will not be able to be here, but we will bring her back because it's an important area that affects all of us in the community, within the Palmdale community. But next I would like to introduce my colleague Tracy Lamonica, who will be talking about our very exciting Policy Leadership Academy that will be starting in January. So Tracy, thank you. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. And let me just change my screen so I can get it up and running. And one moment. And so, as Sylvia did mention, we do have our oh so exciting, let me just change this back, okay. We do have our oh so exciting Policy Leadership Academy. It is the first of its kind. As you may know or may not know, First Five, our initiative over us, has the 5 regions throughout LA County. Christina Hall, who's with us today, is one of our regions in Long Beach, but we're the region obviously in Antelope Valley. And so this is the first Policy Leadership Academy, and it's super exciting for me. I'm just really thrilled to be able to offer this to our residents. And my colleague Stephanie is going to put the sign in the chat. If you are interested in attending, we still have a space available. So if it is of an interest to you, please do feel free to fill that out, and we'll be getting in touch with you. We'll be sending out some information of our speakers. And so, the Policy Leadership Academy is going to bring together thought partners, community residents to really understand statewide federal issues, shared knowledge of the causes and impact, and problem solving all through a policy lens. And so that's really where we're coming from. You might have heard, sometimes chambers have leadership academies, but this is really policy focused. And it's going to be a 3-month cohort. It's actually a little bit less, about 2.5 months, because March is 2 weeks. But so we've got 4 classes modules going on in January. Then we have 4 in February, and then we have 2 in March. And so again, it's a really exciting time for us. Who's eligible? If you're in the public service field, a community resident of the AAV, Antelope Valley, if you have leadership experience, these are all things that if you bring to the table, we're interested in having you. A commitment to children and family. Obviously, we are very focused on 0 to 5, as is our funder. But again, this is something that we'd like to see. And then openness to feedback, and then desire to understand and learn about policy. Policy is maybe some things that people think of political. It's not. It's policy, that directs and really can do the change, the systems change that Sylvia was talking about. So that's really what we're looking for. So again, if this is of an interest to you, Stephanie is going to put in the chat to fill out the your interest. And then finally, super excited, curriculum and speakers, what are we offering? The speakers are all set, so we're super excited. We have Melody Tan of Melody Tan Marketing, who's going to be doing our Creating Presence and Social Awareness class cohort module. We have Danielle Johnson. She's with Habitat for Humanity, talking about diversity. We had her a couple months ago do an implicit bias training, so super excited to have her. We have Congressman Mark Garcia. I know that Jacqueline Owens is on the webinar with us right now, and she was really great in getting that set up, so super excited to have him on board. We have Palmdale City Manager JJ Murphy. JJ is a veteran and a real pillar of the community, so I was super excited to have him. We've got our own Children's Bureau community, Kimberly Garrett, communicating with difficult people. And then finally rounding it out, we have Jim Banks, who is a past city manager in back east in Alexandria, Virginia. Laura Valles, developing collaboration. We have Assemblyman Tom Lackey, problem solving in the public sector, and then Polo Morales with Churla and Dolores Huerta with the civic engagement. So again, we're super excited to have these very, very, people that are in their fields, that are doing great work, that are really going to be instrumental in, shaping this policy leadership academy. So if anything that I talked about is of an interest to you, you have an interest to learn about policy, or you just want to join us for maybe a couple of, and see what it's about, again, we'd love to have you. This again is the first Academy cohort, and we hope that this is going to be the first of many. And so there's my information. But again, Stephanie has put in the chat the Google sign-in sheet to fill it out. So if you do fill it out and this is of an interest to you, we will be getting in touch with you. And so now I'm going to switch screens again, and I'm going to send it over to my colleagues, Christine Alasko and Luz Wilkinson, who are going to be talking about our data work that we've been doing in Best Start Region 5.
Thank you, Tracy. So as many of you who have been to our meetings before know, we really love to show data. So we've been working on something really exciting, and I'm going to have our colleague Luz Wilkinson show us our new and updated Spanish language maps.
Lucy, let me give you co-host ability so you can share.
Or I can share my screen as well. Would that work for you, Luz?
It's easier if I share it.
Okay, you share it. Go ahead.
All right. So where was I? Where is it? Sorry about that, guys. Where is it?
No worries, Lucy. Thank you.
And also big thanks to Carmen, who's on this meeting, our translator and our interpreter, because she also helped with the translation of these maps.
Doggone it. Okay, I think I got it now. Sorry about that. Let's see. Wow, here it is. So can you folks see it or no? Here we go.
No, not yet. There we go.
All right. I'm a little slow, but I'll eventually figure it out. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm Luz Wilkinson, and what we did this go around as we're updating our information is we translated all the maps that we presented to you in the past and into Spanish, that being your second primary language in the area. So not much has changed, but I do want to go over again. The top part, the map, is really looking at everything at the most granular level, the census tract area. So going to any section, it will show you this is the east part of that region. And this is one census tract, this is the other, this is the third that comprise that area. And they give you the data that you're looking for, the data points for that particular map. The circles will give you the other thing. They give you the ethnicities broken down one by one. So another way of looking at it, again, if you recall, we could separate them this way, where you're looking at the same thing we were looking at before, but we separate them into two separate maps. And both maps, each map, what it's doing is representing a different data point. This one here is really all about the languages spoken at home by region, okay? So the deeper the color is, the deeper it is that there's Spanish speakers, foreign Spanish speakers. And then this map is all about who naturalized or foreign born, as opposed to those who have been documented. So was that one of you guys? I heard a beep. Is that okay? Should I continue?
Yeah, you can continue. It's just people coming in.
Oh, okay. So, okay, so this is one map. I'm gonna make it a little smaller. All right. And then over here, the second part, if you'll notice, is what we call a scatter chart. So what it does is it combines both data points to come up with an average of vulnerability. These are vulnerabilities that are considered vulnerabilities as far as public systems go. So we're looking at those that are foreign born, their percentage, and then the percentage that speaks English less than very well. So the higher we go this way, the higher we go that way, the more vulnerable the residents in those areas are. So here we're looking at, no doubt, Palmdale. Palmdale seems to be the most vulnerable in the entire area, but even within Palmdale, you got some pockets that are very, very much more vulnerable than say this area or that. And we're looking at census tracts again. It's really hard to get a handle around it because like you're looking, by double clicking, you open up everything again. But to look at the immense landscape, it's really, really challenging to be able to say, okay, well, what does that mean? One of the things we've been talking about is maybe identifying. I know that residents there, you probably already all know the neighborhood names in all these areas, but we don't. I'm thinking a task might be to identify where these areas, what are these neighborhoods, so we could label them and make it easier for the reader when we're brainstorming or convening bigger meetings to know what neighborhoods are the most vulnerable, which ones are thriving, which ones have improved from one time frame to the next, things of that nature. So anyhow, that's where we're at with this. Again, this, by hitting on this button, this will always take you back to the main panel. Kind of slow, but it'll go there, and then you get to go here back to picking on something. We were in this ethnicities. Now we're going to look at family income. The same basic concept. I wanted to keep it consistent, so we're looking at the map that you could, toggle one way or the other to look at the data, and they're all going to give you information. This is giving you all the poverty, families with children, with families with children at various ages, below poverty, where they are. This here gives you their income, the monthly income scale. So you kind of start to see how they correspond. This reinforces it, the vulnerability, how deep it can be. Here again, we're looking at the median income. So the lower it is, the more vulnerable the families are. And then here we're looking at how many fall below the poverty rate. So this is what this section is. By combining the two, you can click on something and it's going to tell you its information. Okay, so again, we have the English version, but right now what we're showcasing is the Spanish version. Primary reason, I think, for translating it is because we're all about place-based and its importance, and it's really, really important. We all know that residents be involved in anything, any of this exploration. These are their neighborhoods. They are, in a very real sense, the primary stakeholders. It's their children that are going to inherit all these things that we determine that we fight for or we don't fight for. So I do think it's very important that translation always be a consideration so that we can get the information we have as we get it to our community. And that includes all residents and CBOs, anybody who lives, works, or plays there, as the preamble stated on the first slide. So with that, I think I'm going to leave you all and pass it over to Christine.
Thank you, Lucy. Are there any questions about the maps? I know this one was in Spanish. We have the English ones that we've shown before. I put the links in the chat and we'll also email them after the meeting. But for right now, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand.
Yeah, it's important that also we want feedback, criticism, any ideas that you have are really would be very, very greatly appreciated. Data points that you think may are not there, there will be. There are some coming. One thing that didn't get into these maps will be school enrollment, since that's such a challenge, you know, in this day and age. Right now, you know, it wasn't at the time when we started it, but school enrollment will be there so we can get a better gauge of what we're talking about, and maybe even transportation. We'll see what we can come up with. But yes, any feedback we're open to. Any ideas of how to improve what we're the visuals would also be helpful. So thank you guys.
Thank you. And then, so we have a few more topics related to data. We wanted to update everyone that we have begun a phone canvassing effort. So you may receive a phone call from one of us, and it might be from Darrell or Stephanie. And basically, it's an effort to really reach out to our community, our stakeholders, our residents, and even people who are simply interested in Best Start but haven't joined yet. And we just want to take a few minutes, if you don't mind, you know, just kind of speaking with us, answering a few questions. It'll really help our efforts in the new year as we kind of roll out all of our new Best Start programming and strategies. So we just wanted to update everybody on that. If you receive a phone call, you know, it might be from us. So there's that. And then in the future, in the new year, we want to start a data/evaluation committee of anyone who is interested from this group, from the community, anyone who's interested in data and evaluation. Maybe you saw these maps and you thought, you know, hey, I'm really interested in this. Like, how can I dive deeper into what I just saw? And how can I use the data to inform my work? So the work you do, you know, at your agency or with your kids, at your schools, things like that. That's what we want to do with our data group. So if you're interested, in the survey that we're going to put at the end of the meeting, there's a question to say, if you're interested, please, you know, fill that out. And so some of the things we might be doing with the committee, like Lucy said, is number one, look at the maps and identify what the neighborhoods are. What are the names of the neighborhoods? Because the community is the one who lives there. The community knows the boundaries. The community knows the names. And recently, our colleagues over in Anaheim did something very similar, where they took all the boundaries of the city of Anaheim and they kind of, and it's related to the redistricting in a way. So it's kind of cool that, you know, we were supposed to have that conversation as well. But kind of deciding like, okay, that's what this neighborhood is, that's what this neighborhood is, so that when we go in deeper into the data, we can really focus on certain neighborhoods. So that's one idea that the committee can start like just off and running. Another thing would be looking at the data that we're showing you, right? And really identifying patterns, patterns of maybe certain outcomes or of need, and then really working hand in hand with the policy group to then create new strategies, maybe informing the policy group like, hey, you know what we're really noticing, like in this pocket, in this zip code, in this neighborhood. And then the policy group can say, oh, you know what, like we just learned about like such and such policy, and then they can take it, right? So those are some of the things that we're really excited about. And then lastly would be evaluating our network, which kind of sounds like maybe it's a little bit boring, but in reality, I think it is kind of like pretty exciting to say, there's a lot of networks in the Antelope Valley, right? And we're one of them. And so how do we, you know, how do we stack up, and what impact are we having on children 0 to 5? And like, how can we improve? What should we keep doing? Things like that. So those are just some ideas that we have for the new year of our data committee. If you're interested, please, you could either put your name in the chat, but we also have the survey at the end of the meeting that will come out. So with that, who do I pass it to? I think Carlos, right? For our, yes, Lucy wants to say something.
Yeah, just one question, Christine. This data committee, is it, we would consider a work group that would be continuously meeting?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Whether it's about the maps or about what I just spoke about. And then one of the things that we really want to focus on is not just bringing random data, right? is about how do we go deeper and what can we do with it? So that's where this committee really was born from. I think I heard somebody want to say something.
I have a quick comment on the map. It says el umbral de la pobreza. We don't usually use umbral as a definition, so I was wondering if you can put límite or barrera instead of umbral.
Hello, this is Lucy.
Hi,
Yeah,
Lucy.
yeah, we had a professional translator, and I know that, you know, I'm not proficient in writing as well as I am reading it. And I appreciate your comment. That's what I'm inviting, because we had another colleague look at them and she pointed out a lot of errors. So yes, if you can just even type it to me in the chat, I'll make sure to make those changes. So I get them exactly. But anybody else, is, you know, if you notice things like that, we'll be making those modifications as we move forward. Thank you, Maria Elena.
You're welcome.
All right, so I'm going to hand it over to our friend at the Center for Nonprofit Management, Carlos, for some power mapping.
Sorry about that delay. Thank you for passing that on. Hi, my name is Carlos Cazares. I am the Special Projects Associate for the Center for Nonprofit Management. So I'm going to share my screen and let me make sure. Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Great. Okay. All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Carlos Cazares, and so we've been through this before this session, but we have some time today, so I'm gonna ask and invite folks to participate, because when I tend to teach these seminars, my main thing is that everybody that participates walks away with something that they could use maybe tomorrow or even down the road or even next year in the work that they're doing, whether you're part of a nonprofit or whether you're trying to build work within yourself within the community. And so this is a tool, right? And so just a couple things, right? It's important to have a tool to visualize a roadmap to success, right? We're constantly working on things. We're constantly having things pile on us. So it's important for us to have tools to strategize. And I'll explain a little bit of that more as we go through our map tool. But another thing is, you know, the pandemic shifted power, be it political, right? Be it policy, be it just people's understanding of their power, right? So this tool allows folks to really utilize and hone in on that power in order to accomplish either campaigns, policy change, or even if it's about just making sure that you're pushing a certain initiative. And so it goes from a very informal to formal level. And then the last thing is the benefits of incorporating the tool to help strategize systems change that reflects the needs of the community. Because you're gonna see that this tool is more effective when you have more people at the table, right? People that are on the ground, people that are even at a bird's eye view. The more folks and stakeholders or decision makers or eyes that you have involved in this tool is going to reflect the needs of the community a lot more. Okay. So when we look at power analysis or power mapping, this is simply the tool that I use, right? And the reason why it looks a little Mickey Mouse, because I mean, I'm really old school where I just draw things out, right? And so I really wanted to share this, but I do want to go through just the parameters about this, right? Essentially what this is like a map that you just put on a piece of paper and you divide it down the middle, right? And the reason why you divide it down the middle is because there's an agenda that you have. There's something that you're trying to accomplish. But we understand in this world, there's an opposition. So the right side is their agenda, what they're trying to accomplish, what they're trying to counter, and what you're trying to do, right? And we don't know who they is yet, right? These are all things that we identify. But just very simply, there's your agenda on the left, and there's their agenda on the right, okay? And we know that going down the middle, it's neutral. And we'll explain these things as we move some of the pieces on this power map, but the middle is neutral. Anybody that's on this line doesn't necessarily side with you, doesn't necessarily side with them, right? But as we move to the left, the more and more we get to the left of this map, it is support or folks that are inclined to support us, right? So when we move a little bit, people are inclined towards us. When we move more to the left, people are actively support us. And we go all the way to the left, these are our diehards, right? So that's just understanding that. As we go to the right, people are inclined against us, people are in active opposition, and people are diehard against us, right? So that's moving from the left to the right. Now, the last thing is going up and down, right? So left to right is support. Up and down is decision-making power. So the higher up you go on this map, the more decision-making power you have in the goal that we're trying to accomplish. Okay, and I'll explain this a little bit more. But just I want to stop right here because we do have some time. So if folks want to ask questions, this would be the time. So just based on what I've shared right now, are there any questions or does anybody need any more clarification? And I'll pause for like 50 seconds. Cool. Okay. So one of the things that we start putting on the map, because I'm gonna start sharing some elements that we start putting on the map. You're gonna see that it's a very elaborate process when we get into the nitty-gritty of it. But for the sake of time today and just for the introduction of it, it's that you want to make sure that you identify allies. These are folks that work with you, that are in support with you, that are in solidarity with you. They might not completely be in solidarity with you, but in terms of the issue at hand, these are folks that you could count on, that you could talk to, or that you can lean on to try to accomplish this change or this success, right? The other side is opposition. You would list anybody, be it a single person, be it an organization, be it an entity or an institution. This is where you would kind of list your opposition. Now, on this map, the cool thing is, once you list folks, it's up to you to really decide where they fall on this, right? If you're picking an ally, are they kind of neutral or are they a diehard? Do they have little decision-making power? Do they have high decision-making power? And so that's kind of how you position these. So there's allies and then there's opposition, okay? The third one is decision makers, right? Just because you put allies on a map does not mean that they have decision-making power, right? You could put community members in there that have high influence in the community, but if you're trying to fight or you're trying to accomplish, let's say, policy change within your city council or within your city, sometimes residents do not have voting rights or they cannot influence the vote. So they're not decision makers, right? They do influence, and we'll share how that kind of plays into this, but decision makers, okay? And then we have tools and strategies, because we'll see as we kind of go through this map, it's not just about placing people on here, it's about also placing tools or strategies. Now, can anybody think of a tool or strategy that might influence people or move people? And I just open up the floor to that. What's a tool that we tend to use to compel or to move or to motivate people in decision making? And you can put in the chat. What's a tool? Data, engagement and collaboration, discussion, social media, great. Yeah, these are all things, right? So when we think of tools, incentives, definitely, right? Let's use data as an example, right? Because for the purpose of this convening, but data is a tool, right? If we were to put an ally on this map and we were to try to move them, we might set up a meeting with them and share with them some data that they might not have been privy to, right? So these are all things that we also add on this map, tools and strategies. Okay. Now, we're not going to do this today, but essentially when you get into the nitty-gritty of a power map, you have all these elements playing in there. For today, I just put allies, opposition, I put key strategies, and then I also put decision makers, right? And so, but you add key problems on here, you add battles, you add allied forces, you add constituency, and so it gets a little deeper, right? And so we'll save this for another time, but for the sake of today, we'll just focus on those 4 key elements that I shared, okay? But for right now, just Any questions or initial thoughts before we move into the kind of the practice of this? Any thoughts or questions? I'll check that too.
I don't see any hands raised, Carlos.
Excuse me?
I said I don't see any hands raised of anybody.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's put these skills to practice, right? And I think this is the most important part in power mapping, because the hardest thing is people just setting up their map. This is a checklist that I would want folks, that I would encourage folks today. If you could type this on your screen, or you could put pen to paper and start jotting some things down, because I want to be able to share these things, but I also want to be able to answer questions to see how folks are okay with initially starting this up. Number one, whenever you do a power map, what is the goal you would like to accomplish? And so, as I mentioned, with a power map, you could do a big goal of changing policies and procedures as it pertains to dumping in the valley, right? You could change, maybe if you want to bring in a certain candidate into a position, right? So this power map, this tool could be used to accomplish anything, right? But I think at the very onset, you have to say, what is our goal? What are we trying to accomplish? And you have to write that goal down at the top of the power map, okay? Secondly, you want to start making a list. Who are my allies? If this is the goal that I'm trying to accomplish, and let's do this. Let's make a pseudo goal. Can anybody identify maybe something that we might want to accomplish in the valley? What's a goal that we might have? And it could be anything. It could be for your individual organization. It could be for the region as a whole. But I want somebody to throw out an example. That way I could walk you through this one. So you could take yourself off mute, or you could put in the chat, just what's a goal that we might want to accomplish? Access, okay, homelessness, access to housing. Great, awesome, okay. So what might be a goal that we create for homelessness or housing? Let's put maybe a number on it, but let's create like a goal for that. So for this one, let's focus on access to housing. What might be a goal that we want to create for access to housing? And I'll wait a little bit because this is part of the process, right? Just reflection, thinking of it. So what might be a goal? And it could be a just pie in the sky goal, right? More housing in the AV that targets lower income, medium income. Okay, all right. So let's do that. If our goal is to access or create more housing in the AV that targets lower income and medium income, right? Then who might be allied forces? Who might be folks in the AV that we could maybe tap in to a discussion? Who might be our allies? List a couple, be it in the chat or just say it out loud. Builders, city business, people. Who else? Because I see Tracy on there. Lhasa, okay, who else? Who else? Just spitball them. The Housing Authority, okay. LA County Housing Authority, great, okay. Community members, yes, the people that are directly affected by a housing issue. Okay, cool, so we're getting it, right? These are our allied forces. Now, who is our opposition? Who is our opposition? This doesn't necessarily mean, and this is the beautiful thing about a power map, is that once we start listing folks and putting them on there, we have to distinguish how much of an opposition they are, right? Some folks said, you know, corporate builders, real estate agents, right? Homeowners, okay. Well, I don't know if that's allies or opposition. Sometimes homeowners can be opposition, right? Who else? It could be community members as well, yes. Realtors, okay. HOAs, yep. Okay. So when we think of opposition, think of not necessarily folks that you might see, developers, there you go. It's that these are folks that might not support you. These are folks that might be pressured to support the other side. So it's not that opposition isn't necessarily folks that you outright see, I disagree, I don't want homeless housing, right? It's not just those folks. It's folks, even decision makers, that might get pushed or nudged by somebody to be in their favor. So I just want you all to think about that. Yeah, government officials, property managers, okay, great. Now, in homelessness and in affordable housing and all that stuff, what is the opposition's agenda? Like, what is their goal every day in their lives when it comes to housing and homelessness? What is their main goal for them? Making money. Yep. What else? I mean, that might be it, but what other things? And I encourage other folks that haven't participated or shared in the chat to see an increase in property value, right? Profits over people, most oftentimes, right? Do we have one more example of maybe what the opposition's agenda might be? Keeping the quality of the neighborhood, right? We talk about gentrification as well, right? So yes, these are all important agenda items for the opposition. Now, in this whole thing, let's say for the Valley, who are decision makers? Who are decision makers? And I ask you to be creative. Don't just think of like political officials, because they have voting rights, right? But they don't just have, they don't have the money, right? Or they don't have influence. So who are decision makers? Voters, definitely, yes. The constituents are decision makers. Community, okay? And I challenge that a little bit, right? When you say community, is in what way are they decision makers? Because we'll start seeing on the map influencers and decision makers, right? There's a distinction between influencers, right? If I'm a community member and I go to every city council meeting and I do public comment all the time, and those city council members know, oh, here comes Carlos, you know, he's gonna just grill us again. You know, like, I might have some power in that, but at the end of the day, I don't have a vote. So I might be more of an influencer than a decision maker, right? And so yes, it's important for us to distinguish that, okay? But so far I've heard political officials and community members. Are there other decision makers in terms of housing, in terms of homelessness? Who else are decision makers? CBOs, yes, they are, right? Grant funders, yep, business owners, right? So see, again, this is why it's important to really go through a tool, because I think initially when we think of things surface level, we think, okay, political officials, okay, community members, but then this tool really pushes you to be a little bit more strategic about that. Homeowners, right? So yeah. And so lastly, for this checklist, what are tools and key strategies for success, right? The power map will help flush that out. But I think, as we mentioned, data being one tool, what are other tools that we could utilize to create this change, to influence, to move decision-making power? What are other tools? Voting, and I think we said social media as well, right? Are events tools? Are events that we put on tools?
Hello, Carlos. Can
Go
you
for
hear
it.
me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not good with the chat stuff. That's how come I haven't chimed in. But I really am enjoying your presentation. You're hitting on a lot of key points. And I do think, you know, with your, you know, well, first, whoever started with data, I like that, because I've always been one with, you have to convince me, you know, and data is a good way to start. But also, I think when you get people on board, you kind of have to come up with strategies. If you want to have a goal, you have to have a strategic plan that's going to get you that goal, even if it means, you know, opening up housing, low-income housing on one street. You know, it's still the same process of people coming together. Who are the players and what are you up against? And what influence? I mean, a lot of taxpayers have everything to do with it. You know, at the end, who makes the decisions? We do as voters and taxpayers. A lot of people don't want to pay the taxes to, say, housing or whatever, when they're feeling they're barely making it. And like you said, I mean, in LA, that's what happened. Echo Park, Silver Lake, downtown, that was all ghetto. And then it got improved, and now it got gentrified, and now it's all rich people, you know, and the poor got shoved to the side. So that's a learning lesson too. Learn what not to do. you know.
No, thank you for sharing that, Luz. And I invite anybody to jump off mute. And yeah, just you could interrupt me. I'm fine with that. I taught for 7 years. I mean, I work with middle school students. I got interrupted all the time, but it's part of the process, right? We're discussing, right? We're figuring this out. And so yes, Luz, yeah, data, right? And I would even argue, like some folks said, conversation, right? Compelling somebody to discuss, right? In that conversation, you're gonna have some facts, you're gonna have some detail, you're gonna have some lived experiences, right? But those things matter, and it's important to put that in your strategy, right? You also brought up community and neighborhood meetings, right? We invite political officials to these spaces, right? So that pressure is real, but we don't just call it pressure, we call it strategy, we call it a tool, right? So it's important to line these things up, right? We make events, we make, when there's let's say civil disobedience protests, all that stuff is part of a strategy, right? To move things, not to yell just to yell, right? But all these things compel and move people towards, you know, be it system change or policy change, right? So I'm gonna move on from our checklist, but are there any thoughts, questions, clarifications that folks might need before we move on? Okay. Cool. Thank you, Olga. All right, so put this into practice, right? And so I try to make this as simple as I can, right? Because the power mapping and placing the pieces on the power map is just the start. Like it's literally, it's like a roadmap. So once you put all the pieces on there, you're gonna take a bird's eye view and say, okay, cool. We have all these people on here. Are they in the right place? And the important thing about this is that I want you to think about this. All of us in this room have an idea of the valley, of the people in it, the allies, the opposition, but we don't know everybody, right? And so the very first step is to reflect and identify, right? And in your reflection, you want to make sure to ask yourself, do I know everybody? Or do I need to bring in Christine or Tracy or Sylvia, right? To help me tell me if these are the right people or if I'm missing somebody. Are there gaps, right? And I go through this all the time because I've shared this with funders, I've shared this with nonprofit leaders, and I've shared this with community members. And every different time they say, well, will nonprofits bring in community leaders to be part of this process? And I say, they should, right? But I don't know, right? Will foundations bring in community members when they're having this discussion, right? And so it's really to the choice of the person that's working on the power map. But again, the more people that you could bring in, the more diversity, the more skill sets, the more lived experiences, the more accurate your map's gonna be in order to go to the next step and strategize, right? So you reflect and identify, then you map them, you put them on the map. But here's the last thing, right? Is that you gotta do your research. That's the hard part about this power mapping, right? And so we're gonna have a seminar, I believe in February, for the Center for Nonprofit Management on this. And in that, I'm gonna include kind of like some examples of research, because let's say you put in, let's choose a person. Let's say for homelessness, let's put a political official. Let's put a name on it, right? Who's somebody that you might put on this power map that is either an ally or an opposition to homelessness in the valley? Just throw a name out there. And we're not throwing anybody under the bus, trust me. I just need a name to as an example.
Carlos, what was the question again? Who is working with?
Give me a political official that has a stake in homelessness in the valley.
Well, Rex Paris, our mayor in Lancaster, has been very anti. Oh, Sylvia Gardner just said it. Yeah. Mayor
Paris, right? So it's not just about putting Mayor Paris on the map. Once we put him on the map, I'm going to identify somebody in our team to say, okay, you're in charge of doing research on Mayor Paris. I want to know every meeting he's been in, if there's minutes on that meeting where they discuss homelessness, and I want to read what his position was, right? I want to see if there's any policies or resolutions that Mayor Paris wrote in favor and opposition to homelessness, right? These are the things that we start pulling, right? And start researching, because when we read those notes, we read his position, we start moving him on the map and we understand where he lies, right? We also talk about what is he involved in? Who does he know, right? Who does he hang out with? Who does he meet with? What events has he gone to, right? So you get really deep into researching these stakeholders on the power map. And again, this is not just for chisme or gossip, right? This is for you to know where they stand and maybe strategies of how you move them, right? And so it's important to understand that just identifying and mapping things is just the first step. Then after that, you have to really understand how you move the pieces, right? So I want to take another pause there and hear some thoughts or questions around that portion of it, the research of it. Any questions about the research part of it? And has anybody ever done something similar to this? I'm sure there's a bunch of people that have done this in many different ways, but most folks don't call it power mapping, right? Sometimes you might find commonality that you can move them. Yeah, Pilar, that's exactly right, right? That's why we do that research, because we might think, okay, you know what? They're in opposition. Let's put them on the right side of the map. But as we do a lot more research and intel, we'll learn, no, you know what? They're kind of neutral. So there's an opportunity there to move them, because sometimes we say if they're diehard, we don't focus our time on them. They're diehard. We're not moving them to the left. But if we understand through research, no, they're neutral, then we say in our strategy, okay, then we might want to dedicate some more time on this, right? So,
Carlos?
Yeah.
This is Luz again. I hate to interrupt, but my question is, this is really awesome, this power map. Is this something that complements what Tracy is talking about with her policy academy? Is this something that will be something that we'll be using basically to help shape?
Lucy, you just like literally took the words out of my mouth, because that's literally what I just put in the chat. I said, and then it goes into policy, where taking the problem and the solution might be. It's not always policy, but you exactly said what I said. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's exactly
two somewhat bright minds think alike, Trace.
Exactly, they do.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate, you know, like Sylvia, Tracy, and Christine, you know, we've been working for like just about close to a year now on a lot of this stuff. And yeah, they invited me because this is a tool. This is just one, right? We got a bunch of tools in our tool belt, right? As it pertains to systems change. But this is one that really like synthesizes everything, right? It synthesizes the people in the room. It synthesizes the events and the happenings in the community. It synthesizes tools and just general like people, right? And so that's why I love this tool. And I've used this tool in many different things. In my past, I did teaching, I did grassroots organizing, I did systems change and policy work with nonprofits. And so this is a tool that just transcended over time, right? And so, but again, it takes sitting down, and this tool is, you know, it's what we say, a moving document. It changes over time, right? So appreciate the feedback. And again, yeah, there's a lot more intricacies to it, but just for the sake of today, I really just wanted to walk through it like this, okay? And I mean, that's all I have for me. I know I went through it very quickly, but as I mentioned, we're gonna have a seminar for the Center for Nonprofit Management. And as always, you know, when we have those folks are involved in the Best Start Network. You know, there is a code for those folks to participate in those classes for free or at a much lower rate. And so we'll get into it, right? But I do want to open up the floor to questions, but I hope this was helpful. And that's why I try to go through the route of asking folks for more practicality, more practical situations in the Valley. But my question is to folks, and you could give it in the chat, right? But how did this presentation kind of make you think differently about utilizing tools and strategies in the work that we do? And thank you, Sylvia, for adding the.
Also in the survey as well, which is why, you know, we really want everyone to take the survey. There's also a question if you would be interested in learning more about power mapping or attending the seminar. We have that question in there also, so that Carlos can follow up with you after.
And Carlos, there were a couple of comments in the chat. Olga said this is a great checklist when you were speaking about the checklist. And then also we had a comment from Gabrielle Segura, who said this is great when you were speaking. So we've had some comments. And Kim Watson, very thoughtful and strategic. I would love to learn more about this.
Also, Kim Watson said very thoughtful and strategic, would love to learn more about this and attend the seminar.
Awesome. Well, yes, and again, you know, I shared my deck with you all, and so you feel free to share it with the folks that participated today. But yeah, other than that, you know, I hope that you all think a little bit more about using tools and strategies within the work that we do, because it allows us to have an easier roadmap. But I think that the main thing is this, right? You could use any tool or strategy, but I think what's more important is who you include in that process, right? That is reflected to the community. So just keep that in mind. And if we have no questions or comments, yeah, appreciate your time.
I'd like to add something.
Go for it.
I'm sorry, I'm having a breakfast. So one of the things that really like impressed me is when you talk about like, you know, pandemic has highlighted like how people can influence, you know, and we see it in the sector of like the food and in different areas, people quitting their jobs because they don't feel appreciated or you know, it's not enough. So that's another important aspect when you talk about residents, because most of the time residents don't feel, I would say like I hold a stake in this decision, and they don't go to the meetings, they don't participate because they don't feel that they are valued as a CEO or as a, you know, public figure. So that's something to bring back to the community and let them know how valuable, important they are, even though they don't see it that way. So that was really something that like it kind of like impressed me.
No, I appreciate that comment, Marcia, and I'll add this too, right? Like I was a parent organizer for about 3 years in South LA, South Central, and when the pandemic hit, that was when I said, you know what, parents are at home, we got to teach them Zoom, right? Because if we give them access to Zoom, then I could probably meet with them 3 times a week as opposed to once a month in our building. And once we started meeting them more consistently, I shared with them this tool. And I'll argue is that like you mentioned, Marcia, like our community members, our youth, our parents, our elders, they have power, and we realize that. But at the same time too, it's that it could get draining when we don't know how to push our capacities, right? Like I worked with parents that they'll go to every meeting. There'll be 1 or 3 parents that are involved in the after school programs, right? The school site councils, the parent committee meetings, the school board meetings, and they just get stretched out thin, right?
Yes.
And over time, it's not necessarily that they are not involved or they're not, you know, in tune with what's happening, but it's just they're spread out thin. And so what I do with parents is I group them up and I say, hey, when we look at this power map, you understand that there's specific people we have to target. You don't have to talk to everybody in the district. Let's find out who are the 3, right? And that's when we kind of strategize with parents. How do we influence them? How do we move them? And who's going to do it? And that's where parents start saying, okay, I'll talk to him. You talk to him. I'll talk to her, right? And so that's pretty much how we start incorporating that, because people know their power, right? But it's tools and strategies that save us from being drained or just giving or putting everything on one person. When people know how to strategize, their power grows, right? And so that's part of this tool. So I appreciate that comment.
And I also want to add, today I was listening something that they're doing in Argentina when it comes to like one of the things is doing things for others is very important, because sometimes we're like, oh, I have no kids in school, I have no stake in this. But doing things for others, you also help yourself. And a great thing that they found is we are tribal, so we need to be connected and create networks in order to, you know, move forward, you know, whether we want to admit it or not. Because I keep hearing a lot of parents as well, like, oh, it's okay, I don't go, I don't do this, I don't, because they feel like that disconnection. But if like you said, you know, if we strategize, like, okay, 3 are gonna go here, or 3 are gonna tackle this, 3 are gonna, you know, you feel included and you're part of the big thing, even though you're doing a small little task.
Yeah, and when we have a lot of conversations around systems change, you know, it's very big surface level conversations, and folks tend to naturally think, okay, well, all the big heads are doing this, I don't have a role. But when we look at this power map, we realize, no, movement and shifting power happens on the ground through services, through systems change work, through those positions. And so again, I agree with you. When people have purpose, right, their power changes, right? That's really what it comes down to with with folks, right? Giving them that purpose, giving them that role, right? And giving them that strategy, and you'll see people just fly out and do those things, right? So yeah, definitely. I appreciate those comments, and I definitely appreciate the affirmations, but I really do hope that folks were able to, you know, grasp this and have some initial thoughts and start using it. And again, there's my email. If folks have any questions, I'm more than welcome to have a little bit more deeper discussions on power mapping. So
Thank you.
And when we send out all the information to everyone today, we'll include Carlos's email as well for you all.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So I think we are moving into the breakout room portion of the agenda. So thank you so much, Carlos. And we wanted to bring everyone back to the breakout rooms that we did last time. So actually, Tracy, if you will let me share. So in our breakout rooms last time, we did a Jamboard. And so actually, Carlos helped us with this also. You see the screen, right, with the Jamboard?
Not yet.
Oh no, my computer's freezing.
No.
Okay, so it has a lot of the themes that came up in our last meeting. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, do you want somebody else to share it, Christine?
Okay, so what we did was we compiled all the themes together with similar themes with all, this is the compilation of all the different breakout rooms that we had. We put them all together and we
I think it looks like Christine freeze, I think. Sylvia, did you want me to continue sharing my screen?
Sure, go ahead, Tracy, please.
Okay, so these are the breakout rooms, and as Christine was saying, in our last meeting and our last convening, we talked about the different issues that are facing the Antelope Valley, what we have that is a concern to the Antelope Valley, and these were the 5 main topics that we came up with. Obviously, we just discussed housing a little bit with Carlos in his power mapping and programs, meaning the different programs that are available. We obviously have some CBOs here, actually see quite a few here, and education, youth opportunities. I know that that's something that's been talked about a lot in our community, that, you know, there's not enough opportunities, and that when there are, they fill up quickly. And so again, opportunities for our youth. Health and mental health. I mean, I think that is pretty, it kind of goes without saying, again, because we are the Antelope Valley, we don't have access to the, you know, the specialists. I know that with Children's Bureau, our overseeing agency, you know, they have been inundated since COVID hit. You know, people are really struggling out there for obvious reasons. And then the public services. So what's offered here? I'm not sure if Sylvia wanted to mention, you know, that exercise, but this is kind of where we're headed for the breakout rooms and what we were discussing.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we don't just have a conversation and that it ends there, right? Like, we want to make sure that this is the ongoing conversation. The work of systems change is timely, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it may be a while before we see some results, but if we keep the conversation active and we keep it moving, is how we're going to start moving that needle of change, right? So what we did is like Tracy explained, we took all of the information that we got from the last meeting and really kind of broke it down into 5 different areas that people really had a lot of interest in. So we just want to go deeper in there. And you'll see in each room that there's 3 questions that go with each room. So when you get into, you'll have the choice of what room you want to go to. We're not picking for you. Whatever topic is of interest to you is the room that you will choose to go to. And then we'll have those 3 questions in each of the rooms of the Jamboard. And what'll happen is it's just really just leading that conversation and getting more information. You know, one of the questions is like, who else should be at the table? And in our last meeting, we talked about maybe having you know, faith-based organizations. Well, let's go deeper than that, not just faith-based, but what specific faith-based organizations are focusing on these topics, and let's bring them into the table. So that's kind of what we want this breakout room to be. And we will have about 20 minutes to be in there and discussing. And like I said, there's 3 questions to each of the rooms. So as you get the opportunity to choose what room you want to be in, we will then we will lead the conversation there as well. And I see Christine's back. Sorry, Christine.
Apparently, no internet provider in LA can handle any sort of rain whatsoever because all meeting long people have been getting booted.
So I've actually, since Christine got booted, I just opened up all the rooms. So as we mentioned, if you could assign yourself to a room, we've got housing, public services, education, also youth opportunities, health and mental services, and again, programs. So those are the rooms, and we will have one of us joining you, and you'll be on a Jamboard, which my colleague Stephanie just put into the chat. So it'll be interactive for you, and then we'll have questions when we get into the Jamboard. So again, these are the rooms, and if you'd like to pick your room, there's no wrong answer. So whichever one you want, that's the room that you can join. And so I see we've got, and Darrell has joined programs, so.
So I was saying, if you needed to be reminded of what we talked about in our last meeting, the initial Jamboard is still there. We just compiled everybody's thoughts into one board.
And Sylvia has joined housing, so that's for you and I, Christine. And Stephanie is in education. So, okay.
Tracy, will I be able to jump from room to room to get those questions?
They will be on the Jamboard. So if you
Okay.
if you wanted to join just one of the rooms, Alyssa, thank you so much for asking.
Got it.
Yeah, just join one of the rooms, and then the Jamboard's up. So also the link.
I
is
see
in
it.
the chat. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
There's 3. Sure, Olga. So there's 3 rooms that are focused on each topic. So it's housing. So if that's of a concern or an interest to you, public services, education, also youth opportunities, health and mental services, and then programs. And program is kind of a broad, topic, but again, okay. And so, no problem, Cecilia. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so again, if you're still here in the main room, you should be choosing a topic. Is there any questions that I can answer for you if you're here?
Where are you, the topics?
So the topic, you should see in front of you breakout rooms. So if you're just seeing the names of you that are not having joined yet, you need to scroll down. And when you scroll down, you'll see housing, you'll see public services, you'll see education, health and mental, and programs. And so what you need to do is you just hover over one of those topics and you just hit join, and you'll be in that room. Any other questions that I can answer? We've got still a couple people in the main room. For Terry, if you want to join youth, I would think you would join education, because that's education and youth opportunities. And I know with your nonprofit, that might fit perfectly for you. Okay.
I'm still not seeing it.
Okay. So Sylvia, so Miguel and Sylvia, you're not seeing anything. Is that why you're here with me still? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to go into the housing.
Okay. Let me put you in there myself then.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
you want to go into housing, and I will give everybody a 1-minute warning, and then we're all coming back. So thank you so much for finishing early. Health and mental services.
Thank you. Before everybody rejoins, I just wanted to say this is such a pleasure learning from everyone today, and also watching the meeting being run. This is one of the most efficient meetings that I have seen, and the tools you're using, I'm taking notes for myself too with everything. This is really well done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Olga. That's lovely. It's fun. It's nice because sometimes there's stuff going on in the back that you don't see, and you get a little anxious. But if it looks all smooth, like what is that? The duck going in the water, and he's looking all smooth, but underneath his little feet are.
Yeah.
So.
No, you're doing great, especially with the the virtual meeting fatigue everybody's experiencing. It just this is really refreshing, especially the interactive tools. Everything. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, it is tough. You're right. I mean, I've been Children's Bureau, which is our overseeing agency, put us at home right away. It was March 2020. So I've been doing this now for almost 2 years. That seems crazy, but you're right. The fatigue is a little, yeah, Laura, you're like, yeah, the fatigue is a little much though, but you know, sometimes you just gotta, you know, up it and just, you know, just do your thing. And our team is great. I'm very fortunate to have such lovely colleagues to work with. So.
Absolutely.
And I just shut down the room, so everybody's coming back in 25 seconds. So we will be joined by everyone in a moment, and then we can share out. And once more, thank you all for joining us today. It's been lovely, although it's not really lovely outside. It looks so gray and depressing. If you're in the Antelope Valley today, it's kind of sad looking, but
Well, you know, for a change, for one day, it's okay.
that's true. Yeah, every other day, yeah, it's just windy. And everybody's joining us now, so everybody's back. So
I'm sorry, Sylvia, we got whiplashed right back into the main room. How rude.
I was in mid-sentence.
She was mid-sentence.
That's what I said. How rude.
That's just rude.
You'll all forgive me. The non we had one group that came back early, so I did cut you off 5 minutes. So that's my apologies, but I didn't want one group, you know, hanging out and the others, you know. So that's why
Hey, I thought the other groups were done. I thought education was done too.
Well,
no.
here's the thing is that we know that these are ongoing. I mean, this is not a conversation that we can just end now. I do believe that for our next convening, we've got to pick up like where we left off in some of these rooms. In our room, our conversation was so full and so, you know, everybody participating that we barely had started the second question. We had only gotten through the first question. So, but I think it's also the topic. We were in the housing topic. So I think, you know, we really, these conversations need to continue, obviously. And so again, we apologize for the whiplash we just got on that one.
And so
I had a question.
Sure.
So since it was mental health, housing, and education, do the other two kind of get scrapped and we just focus on those, or how do you do?
No, so what happened, Lucy, is everybody picked their own, and that's what I was going to mention actually to everybody here. The two that didn't have anybody in there because they didn't pick them was the programs, which is room 2, and the public services. So everybody seemed to be very interested in housing, education, and youth opportunities, and health and mental. And that's actually interesting because that means that's where the people that are attending our convening are most interested in. So it doesn't mean that we'll scrap them, but it does show us that moving forward, this is where the interest,
the priorities.
You know, it's actually, I think it makes sense because programs can fall under those categories, right? And
I was thinking that too, that it was maybe a little non-specific, and maybe
Too
that.
broad.
Yeah, maybe that's why, exactly. And so you know, maybe in the future we don't need the programs group, and then public services. What we were thinking of for that one was like transportation in the Antelope Valley, like the garbage, just like the dumping and those types of things. But if that's not, maybe that's not top of mind for people as of today, but we can always bring that back in. But I do think the fact that those 3 groups had the most interest, that is very good information for us. And now we know, like, hey, we can kind of focus on those things, you know?
Yeah. And continue the conversation. We know that, you know, we're doing this convening quarterly, and we really take your information and your input into what the community and the stakeholders our network wants to see. So we will continue to hear that and move with that.
And so at this time, as I mentioned, the 3 rooms that were really popular today were housing, education, youth opportunities, and health and mental. So do we have somebody that wanted to share from the housing group? I know that was a large group. Sylvia, you were in that group, correct? Did we have anybody that wants to share some of the things that you talked about, some of the issues that came up? Did we want to go to the Jamboard at this time, or what would you like?
Can we go to the Jamboard, and then I'd love to hear from some of my group members you know, in terms of, like I said, we really only made it through the first question, and that was really where we were looking at. But if it, or anybody else in the group that would like to speak up, but there was some really good thought that was coming out of this, and I would encourage either Eugene, Juliet, or even Sylvia, if you guys wanted to, Miguel, or anybody in our group that would like to just share at least a little bit on.
And are we on the right screen here,
No,
Sylvia?
you got to go. Yeah, you're in the right, but you have to go to our page. I think we were page 7.
Okay. You got it.
Oh no, backwards. Sorry, it was page 3. Right there.
There you
Right
go.
there. 4.
Page 4.
Or 3, 4, 1, 8. You know.
That's fine.
So, yeah, so you said there's a couple people.
Yeah. Does anybody want to jump in? Come on, team. Represent the housing team.
Eugene's one of our OG. He goes back quite a couple years with Best Start. So did Eugene want to?
I'm gonna push Eugene or Juliet.
Come on, Julietta.
Yes, Ms. Durrell.
Uh-oh.
Thank you.
We discussed about affordability, qualification, and eliminating chronic homelessness. We was just basically saying, why does it have to get to the point of chronic homelessness before, you know, tackling the homelessness? And also looking at the qualification, like not making it such a hard process to qualify to get into the housing that is available to the low income, you know, homeless family. Because sometimes it's like the qualification alone like deter the person from even trying or even trying to apply, and like they're just gonna deny me anyway, that kind of mentality, and we don't want them to be like that. And also we talked about the book of resources, talking about just having those information ready for caseworkers, case management, LASA, whoever is out in the encampments, and having it like a resource paper or flyer or something, just to hand a little card or something, call this number or call this person, so they could know what is there in the community that is funded by the state and federal for them. And just touching on the veterans, that there's no way a veteran should be chronic homeless, you know. There should be programs for them, which there are, but a lot of them don't know it, you know, or they don't have the ability to research it, to, like we were talking about, some of them don't even have internet or don't know how to utilize the internet to search. And so it just needs to be more people out there advocating for them and for homeless people, period. And Eugene had touched on, like, also just in the qualification process, like the first come, first serve, you might have someone who is, you know, came first, got the application first, but you might have another person like a veteran with mental issue or some sick, you know, illness, and that would be the first person you would probably try. I mean, it's not showing favoritism, it's just, you know, it goes back to the qualification and all of that, to see who, okay, this one needs it more, this one could probably get a little more here, or just, it's just a process, and bringing the information to the people who need it out in the street, having them, you know, case workers, management, even when they apply for GR or, you know, DPSS, having them have those information provided to them also, like, this is this program, this is this, and you could get this, just do this, you know, just having it ready for them. Because there is program, and a lot of people don't know. Some people don't even know of the shelters and, you know, that's available for them in this winter season. So that's kind of about it. Miss Sylvia.
Thank you, Juliet. Yeah, I'd also like to throw one last thing in there as well, and it's the issue of really addressing the causes of homelessness, not just, you know, paying the rents or paying the deposits, but really talking about, like, do a lot of our residents need financial literacy classes? And if those are, you know, if we make more of that available, will that then start reducing the chronicity and homelessness, you know? So really just not just putting a Band-Aid on the homeless issue, but really addressing the core causes of it.
Did anybody else on your team want to speak, Sylvia? I know you mentioned a couple others, but if they're not, we don't want to
They're
volunteer.
shy. They're shy.
Okay,
So
okay.
Juliet and I can speak for them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Excellent dialogue. So next, I'm going to go to education and youth opportunities. My colleague Stephanie. Stephanie, did you want to talk about some of the issues that you spoke about? And does anybody else in your breakout want to speak?
Yeah, I will. If anybody wants to speak on my group, I know I had Pilar. Let me see. I know Dora was in and out. You know, I know her internet service. Kim was, Perkins was there. If any of you guys would like to speak, Maria.
And if nobody does want to speak, did you want to just talk about some of the issues that were brought up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did talk about there's not as much activities to do for the youth here in the AV. Also, there's Pilar did mention about how a lot of recreation programs there's a bunch of challenges just to go, you know, like funding or transportation. And so I brought up like a wheel of challenges. And as well, for the following question, what type of data? Oh, sorry, I just saw the chat right here.
That's okay, that's okay.
But yeah, for the type of data, they want to see more school programs, more education on state parks, as well as more engagement from schools. So Kim, I know you unmuted yourself, so I wanted to see if you wanted to.
Yeah, just real quickly. I know that I joined late because I was dealing with a survivor, but we were talking about getting the community engagement and getting programs involved with our kiddos and having the parents more proactive. So maybe partnering, I know that was discussed, maybe partnering or going over and having a talk with Jay Duke or Sally Antebello over at the Boys and Girls Club. I know that Eastside High is open to opening up their facility, I believe free of charge. Still, I'd have to check with my contact. But we talked about, or I suggested a town hall meeting and getting the buy-in from our community at large and really getting the parents and the kiddos engaged. That's what we were talking about as we were having fun with Dorel in and out with her freezing.
Her internet's legendary. It's never
Yes.
it's not working or not working very well.
Right.
And so yeah, the rain and the wind. And so education.
And I wasn't in this group, but from our initial phone canvassing that I know Stephanie has already talked to some people, and one of the things we heard back from was partnering with public libraries, which I think would definitely fall into education and youth opportunities. It would also fall into the public services, but since, you know, we have this group like alive and running here, so I think partnering with public libraries is something we might want to look into, maybe. We heard, you know, directly from some of our members on the phone, so.
Yeah. And if you haven't been, the new Quartz Hill Library is gorgeoss. I don't know if anybody's been, but I was there, what was it, 2 years ago, right after it opened. It's a gorgeous library. Kim, I think I saw you take yourself off.
I did, just to add to that, Kristen, I know that our Lancaster library is very open. I know that in past, and I believe Tracy can attest to this, as well as Sylvia being with my agency previously, that they were always open to hosting our Connect Day and then the homeless outreach. So I wouldn't see, yeah, I mean, this is, you know, something that's much needed, and like that would be definitely something to visit with the libraries. So Kristen, definitely, that's a great suggestion. And I think that the seeds are already planted there in one way or another for the community.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Kim. I really appreciate your group chiming in and letting us know what was going on there. And whoa, okay, Christine, what were you doing over there? Like, wow, she put hers to work.
The stickies over here.
Wow.
Okay, to be honest with you, we didn't really go through like the questions. We just kind of let it flow, which is great. So does anyone from the health and mental health group want to share some of the things we discussed?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much.
I'm Irma Gomez, by the way, and I'm from Children's Bureau. So I think what I like best about the discussion that our group had is the recognition that mental health healing, I should say, comes in different forms. And so it's not just necessarily counseling, right? There's diet, nutrition, there's physical activity, social connectedness. And so I think the discussion, as I understood it, really came down to awareness and access, and the importance of forming partnerships so that those opportunities for awareness, right, outreach and engagement, targeting youth, particularly youth from 12 to 18, who we know are at greater risk for mental health issues, substance abuse issues. So partnering with Parks and Recreation, substance abuse counseling organizations, mental health organizations. You mentioned, Christine, the library, the schools, and then that funding also is an issue, right? Affordability of services. And also a really interesting point that was raised was the challenges particular to the Antelope Valley region and how it's been difficult in the mental health field to recruit and retain clinical staff to provide the services. I mentioned that Children's Bureau happens to have incentives. So staff who are willing to locate to the Antelope Valley or drive out to the Antelope Valley get what we call a geographical differential. And we're actively always trying to recruit for that particular region, more so I would say than in the areas where Children's Bureau provides mental health services as well. I don't know, anybody else want to add anything? What did I miss?
Yeah, and then this ties in with like the public transportation and stuff like that as well, because if you can't get to your service, then you can't get your service. Actually now with Zoom and everything, that has improved the telehealth stuff, but still, needing that public transportation. And then someone mentioned the lack of kind of availability of specialists like in the health and mental health field in the Antelope Valley. So if you need a high specialty kind of care, you might be traveling 3 hours to go into LA to get that care. So, all of those things make it really tough. And, that kind of create the system that we have in the Antelope Valley. Are there any other thoughts from anyone else in our group?
Yeah,
I have a comment. Christine, I just think it was amazing. I found this really, really, I think I learned a little bit more about Antelope Valley and the needs and the opportunities. I don't know. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Just so everybody knows, Lucy is a resident of LA. She's been with Children's Bureau for many years, and she is our data queen over here. She helps us with the maps and everything. But so we appreciate her coming to these meetings and participating, because the more we all know, the more we share with each other, then the better, just the better off we are. So thank you, Lucy.
Thank you, Lucy.
Yeah. If I can just add one more thing. We discussed also the stigmatizing the term mental health or mental disease, and the branding it perhaps as a holistic approach, to address the overall health and well-being that includes mental health aspect as well as our colleagues mentioned earlier, nutrition, physical activity, and addressing the gestalt of it.
Cool. And so, Christine, thank you so much.
That was all of our breakout rooms, right, Tracy?
Yep.
Awesome. So Thank you everyone for participating in our breakout rooms. What we plan on doing is combining all this information again, like we did last time, going through it, seeing what themes are emerging, and then kind of diving deeper. And like every time we meet, it's like we get deeper and deeper. So eventually we will be able to use this information and create strategies for our region and really try to affect that systems change that is, you know, the reason that we're here today. So wait, who's doing next steps? I don't think this is me. This is, I'm gonna pass it to Darrell.
Oh, is it Sylvia? Darrell? So again, thank you so much. I am with you now. And so I am stable. Yeah, I want to thank you and make sure you are if you're interested in our Policy Leadership Academy, the registration was provided in the link. Look into that, and it will be a awesome experience with Tracy Lamonica. We also have coming up next week on December the 16th, our Best Start holiday party, or our partnership meeting. We're just going to be celebrating our holidays. Please join us. That information again will be provided in our link. And if you would take a moment just to complete our convening survey following this, we really would appreciate your feedback, your comments. We look forward to that because we're looking to do some great things moving forward in 2022. So we really, really would appreciate your feedback on our convening. Oh, happy holidays. And don't forget to, I saw that, Christina, I saw you in the chat. Don't forget to indicate if you are interested in data evaluation committee, as well as the mapping in our survey. So when you do the survey, it's going to ask some questions about the data evaluation and the power mapping. You can express an interest in that survey. So again, please complete the survey for us because it really is instrumental on how we move forward. We want to make sure we are capturing all of your thoughts, your feedback, because we want this to be the best place, best start, best place. Okay, and with that, thank you for joining us and enjoy the rain. Oh,
thank you
okay,
everybody, and happy holidays.
Happy
and
holidays.
Please make sure to take care of yourselves.
Tracy, you have a question in the chat about the Academy.
Okay. Let me see. I signed up for the Academy previously. So we are actually in the process, Sylvia Garner, of sending out information. You will be receiving, I know Sylvia Scott and I were working, and so you'll be receiving some information in the latter part of December, which will entail all of, you're actually going to be getting a lot of information on the speakers. You're going to be getting information on the topics, but the Policy Academy does start on January 4th. So that's the first one. And then it will be each Tuesday, 5 to 7 p.m. online. It will be virtual. And I know, Kim, you're also signed up for the Leadership Academy. So again, I'm super excited about it. So if you have an interest, please join. It's going to be exciting, and you're going to be the first cohort. So if you go through and you actually enjoy it, you might even be asked to be an ambassador for us. So lots of exciting stuff on that level. And yeah, so join, and thank you so much for joining us. And we hope you have a lovely, lovely holiday. Lovely holiday.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.
Merry Christmas.
Bye, Miss Sylvia.
Bye, Honeyman.
Bye, Olga.
It's so nice to see you.
I miss you so much.
Aw, same here. Happy holidays.
You too.
We'll connect in the new year.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Okay. And thanks to the music. Much appreciated. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You guys killed it. Ooh, ooh. Good job, guys. Good job. All right, guys, I gotta go. Good job, guys.
Bye, Miss LaShonda. LaChapelle. Woo, woo.